What's up, guys? Welcome once again to the Save Continue podcast. My name is Ryan Robinson. This here's Tom Shelby.
Hi.
Every week we get together and talk about video games and shit. Shanee is not here right now because she's married, so it's just me and Tom now.
Yeah, Shanee's married.
Shanee's married now. So, Tom and I are going to talk about video games and shit that we've been playing and also other things related to video games. Tom, what have you been up to, my friend?
I've been playing a lot of video games, like a lot.
That's really cool. That's what I like to hear.
But also, it's been a little while since we've recorded an episode.
It's been 2 weeks.
Yeah, so maybe that's why it seems like a lot.
War were declared.
Been playing a lot of Monkey Ball.
I know it.
I bought Banana Blitz HD, which is not a great Monkey Ball game.
Yeah. So when we were playing it on Extra Life,
Yeah.
you had some criticisms toward that game.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. After Monkey Ball 2, I mean, technically after Monkey Ball Deluxe, but Monkey Ball Deluxe is basically just 1 and 2.
Right.
They started adding like little lips to edges and guardrails,
Right.
which made the series much easier than it had ever been.
And you don't like that.
No. And then in Banana Blitz on the Wii, which is what this version is, it's the old Wii version, like the launch Wii game. That was a motion controlled game, and you could jump, which you've never had the ability to jump in a Monkey Ball unless you flung the stage properly.
Sure.
So this is a port of that, and it's a beautiful port, man. Like
I will give it that. It's a good looking game.
They made it look real nice. They redid the UI and everything.
Yeah.
Like, it looks nice.
Yeah.
But it's still that game, and like my whole thing is like, even a bad Monkey Ball game, I'm still having fun with.
Right. You're not having as much fun with this one?
I'm still having fun with it, but you know, at the same time, it just makes me want the old Monkey Ball.
Yeah.
So I bought the old Monkey Ball.
How much Monkey Ball is in your possession right now?
Just the 2 titles. So Monkey Ball Deluxe for the original Xbox, which is Monkey Ball 1, 2, and then some extra shit.
Yeah.
And so that's basically the best Monkey Ball you can get is Monkey Ball Deluxe for Xbox.
Okay.
And then this new one.
Okay, go ahead.
So I've been doing a lot of that. Halloween got me in the mood for horror, so I've been doing a lot of horror stuff.
Hashtag get spooked.
Yeah. Finally played through Resident Evil 2. Took me long enough.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
It's just a fantastic video game.
Yeah, and of course I've got little nitpicky things about it, but overall I really do love it.
Yeah.
I still think the original remake is the best Resident Evil.
I think remake is, so don't get me wrong. There are many times you saw it. Resident Evil 2 remake spooked me. I got spooked.
Yeah.
So the spooks are definitely there, which is interesting because in the original release of Resident Evil 2, I found I think I was like maybe 12 when that game came out.
Yeah.
Not spooked at all.
See, and that's funny to me. For me, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
The original Resident Evil 2 is the first game to ever scare me.
Yeah.
The liquor going across that first window when you go into the lobby or the reception is the first thing to scare me.
Did any other part in that game scare you?
Not that I can recall.
Yeah.
But
it
was a long time ago.
I feel like Resident Evil 2 has more, like the remake has, they made it more scary. They put more scares in there, and they go pretty heavy with specifically with Claire's playthrough. They go really heavy with the whole man is a real monster angle, which I liked.
And we'll go deeper into that once we go into our conversation, which will be horror games this week.
Well, don't spoil it for them, Tom.
Right. So played through that and still playing it, but
now you're trying to get your time down.
I'm trying to get my time down. My best time is still 4 hours, which isn't great.
Wow. Well, our time was 7.5 hours.
Yeah. Well, we also did Claire, which I wasn't as familiar with.
It's goddamn plugs.
My 4 hours with Leon, but like the plugs I've got down, no problem now.
Yeah.
It's just
it's identical twixt the two, isn't it?
As far as I can tell.
Yeah.
They both lead to different things. But
to clarify, there's a part in Resident Evil 2 remake where you have to plug these different chest-themed spark plug looking things into these mechanisms to get a door to open.
Yeah.
And Tom and I, when we played together, we had a hard time locating all the plugs.
Right.
So
but that's I had a lot of fun with it. I picked up Silent Hill 2.
Nice.
Restless Dreams.
That is Silent Hill 2. IMO best Silent Hill game.
Yeah, and I think most people agree that 2 is the best game in the series. A lot of people say 3, but it's usually one or the other.
Yeah.
I think 2. Replaying it now, I think Silent Hill 2 is my favorite horror game. But yeah, specifically the Xbox version. I don't currently have a PS2. I gave it to Ryan. So I'm playing the Xbox version on the 360, not the HD collection, the original Xbox version. There's a lot of problems playing Silent Hill, really 1 through 4 nowadays, because they just refuse to re-release them. I think largely is because when they did re-release it, the reception was bad.
Sure.
But the reception was bad because they put out a bad product.
Yeah.
The HD version is horrible. There's a lot of arguments over what's the better version. Most people say the PlayStation 2 version.
The HD collection was 2 and 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the Xbox version is better than the PS2 version. But the changes are very little,
Yeah.
The Xbox version has like per pixel lighting, which PS2 couldn't do.
Right.
Stuff like that. The PS2 version, the cutscenes play back at 60 frames, which in the Xbox version they play back at 30.
Right.
It just depends on what matters more to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, played through that again, and man, still very, very good.
Yeah. James Sunderland. So I guess I'll probably touch on this when we get into our talk, but
yeah, I'm just gonna go through them real quick. Started toying around with The Evil Within again.
Yeah.
And then started playing Resident Evil Revelations 1 again.
I want us to do we were talking about doing a streaming a playthrough. I think The Evil Within is the way to go.
Yeah.
Mostly because I want to finally finish that game. I started that game 3 times.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it every time, but for some reason it just...
And this is my second time starting it, and yeah, I've never finished it either.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely get to that. But what have you been playing?
So the usual, lots of Mortal Kombat. I talked a little bit before about how I guess it's been maybe a month or so ago now that the third every character got a third tournament legal variation.
Oh yeah.
And I wasn't hot on most of them, but I've also been picking up secondary characters to round out, because I can't just use Jax all the time. He's not a good matchup with everybody, right?
Right.
So I've been playing with Baraka and Scarlet a lot lately, and Baraka's third variation, very cool. I like it a lot. And so is Scarlet. She has a thing where she literally makes your blood boil, and I think that's really cool.
Let me ask you, the variations of these two characters that you're playing. I mean, you're making it sound like you're playing them. You're learning them for matchups that Jax is not good for.
Right.
Do you feel like these particular characters are good for those matchups?
So yeah, a lot of the times when I struggle with Jax, it's usually with people who are very zone heavy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And Jax does have some stuff to deal with zoning, but it's specifically in a variation that I don't play.
Yeah.
And don't really have a desire to play.
Right.
And Scarlet is really good at she has some really good zoning stuff herself. So I've been really practicing that with her. And with Baraka, he's very much close range like Jax is, but he can close that distance a lot faster than Jax can.
Yeah.
And plus he's got projectiles of his own that he can use, and Jax's projectiles, his grenade launcher
Does he still do the thing?
He doesn't do it like this.
Like he used to?
He does like this.
Yeah, he used to do it like this.
Yeah. So Jax's projectiles, like, one of them requires his arms to be heated up, which is, very like, that's not always going to be the case. And I don't always have access to that. And his grenade launcher has way too many frames.
Yeah.
To be like practical. So so using them has really helped me out. And also they're just fun characters to play, and I never really realized that.
I'm sorry, I'm getting a text message from Shanee.
Oh, yeah, breaking news.
Not gonna make it.
Just hearing from our producers.
Yeah, so this episode will be just us, and the next episode will be just us.
Yeah, just the boys.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of Mortal Kombat. I've been playing a lot of it with my girlfriend. She is actually turning out to be quite the natural with Kotal Khan, as it turns out.
Nice.
And it's really cool. She's picking up on his moves a lot. So she's basically between Kotal Khan and Jade.
So she doesn't play a lot of fighting games,
No,
right?
No.
You know what at least for me, I noticed that my friends that don't play a lot of fighting games tend to be good with heavier characters.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why that is.
Yeah.
But remember our friend Zach, whenever we played Street Fighter together, he loved Street Fighter, but he was never very good at it. And Geef he was great with.
And it's weird that she doesn't play a lot of fighting games, but she's got some really good fighting games on her PlayStation. She's got KOF 98.
Yeah.
And she's got Street Fighter 5.
Yeah.
Which I know people have their feelings about both of those games. It's whatever. But I enjoy both of those games quite a bit. So, also, Tekken, and lastly, I finished. I told you off mic that I finished Far Cry 5.
Yeah.
That game is cool for a lot of different reasons, I think. And I think that there were some legitimate criticisms levied toward that game, but I think that the overall tone and the storyline and the primary antagonist, all that, I just find is it's just really fascinating to me.
Well, it's loosely based on Heaven's Gate, right?
Maybe not so loosely.
Yeah.
But it's just very cool. It's there's something about that kind of there's something about, because I was telling you before that the overarching thing in all Far Cries is some kind of madness, and I feel like that
summoning sickness.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess that's the summoning sickness. He has a summoning sickness because he's always trying to summon the Lord.
I just always thought it would be funny to call into work with summoning sickness.
Yeah, I can't come in. well, no, go to work, but you can't do any work that whole day because you got summoning sickness.
Right, because you were summoned.
Yeah. And then went from there and started New Dawn. Apparently, people don't like New Dawn so much. I think it's pretty cool so far. So, yeah.
I think you are very much the kind of person, and I am too, depending on the game, who a 6 or a 7 is fun.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a fucking masterpiece of a game.
Well, I think that people are looking for a very specific, I don't know what people, I think everybody's looking for a specific thing in a game. But for me, I think a lot of the time when people are looking at, a lot of time people will look at review scores after the fact.
Yeah.
After they've already purchased the game.
Sure.
And they're looking for something to
justify their
purchase, right? And me, what justifies my purchase is whether or not I'm having a good time with it.
Right.
I tend to, but I also look for very specific things in video games too. I like stuff that's very loud and kind of in your face, which was what I was looking for with Rage 2, which but
it's got Andrew WK.
So turns out there's a lot of Andrew WK in the advertising, not so much in the actual game.
Yeah.
So
going back real quick, you kind of sped past Tekken 7. I'm glad you're still playing it because I bought it for you for dirt fucking cheap.
The game is so.
I'm glad you're getting
cool.
enjoyment out of it.
Well, so my first,
I had a lot of fun with that game.
My first actual, real good session with that is. I came over for our fighting game day.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's play Tekken 7. Right.
I
haven't actually played it outside of the bowling.
Yeah. Which is fantastic.
That game is just so good. That game just feels good to play.
Yeah, it does.
And I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I'm getting pretty good with that Geese Howard, if I do say so myself.
You figure out his meter?
Nope. But yeah, that game's just fun to play. There are very few games that I play where there are very few fighting games that I play where I like playing as any of the characters.
Yeah.
And
I find it to be a very relaxing fighting game.
Yeah. And it's just
3D fighting games in general. Even Soul Calibur, I'm just less stressed playing those games.
And I'm feeling a little sad lately about it because I haven't touched Samurai Showdown in a while, and I played it I played the game so much at first, and then I just kind of fell off of it.
Yeah, even when initial impressions of the game started coming out, because you and I had never been big into Samurai Showdown,
right?
I kind of didn't think it would be for you, just in its slow pace, and you tend to play a bit more rushdown heavy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, I do like it.
But no, yeah, absolutely.
Like, and
I guess what I'm saying is like, it's hard to give an equal amount of attention to multiple games of the same genre.
Yeah, like especially when you're trying to like really improve with, and I like I'm always trying to improve Mortal Kombat, and then
right,
that doesn't afford, and especially the main thing is I can make the transition from Mortal Kombat to Tekken, okay,
right,
but going from Mortal Kombat to Samurai Showdown is just like that requires a different mindset that I
and they're all three so different,
yeah,
but
so
that's cool,
yeah. So, Tom, what are we talking about this evening?
I just want to talk about horror games. That's all I want to talk about.
Yeah,
and I mean, I don't have anything specific I want to talk about, but
okay. So now that we're actually going to talk about fighting horror games, so going back to Silent Hill.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, there are people who kind of teeter between 2 and 3 as their favorite Silent Hill games. And I think that's interesting specifically because I think that those two games are two very different kinds of horror. I think that Silent Hill 3 is very much like the more like gore heavy, like kind of constant shriek horror, and I feel like Silent Hill 2 is more of like a lingering dread kind of horror.
Yeah, I mean, I think both games. What I really like about Silent Hill is the enemy design.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's, amongst creepy other things, but like to me, these manifestations of different people's, problems.
Yeah.
Is more scary than a zombie.
Sure.
And I think that Silent Hill 2 and 3 both are awesome in that way.
Yeah.
Heather's enemies are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Silent Hill 1, I think, fell flat because it wasn't Harry's enemies.
Yeah.
They weren't his manifestations.
That town was just fucked up.
It was Alessa's, yeah.
Well, I like Silent Hill 2 because like James is there to like he's trying to find his wife, and like, but just like it always seems like every facet of that game, because there's obviously some guilt that he feels, like there's just like, and I just feels like everything in that game is just a manifestation of that, and I think that's really cool.
Well, it's weird, right? Because like most of the enemies center around James and are spawned from James, right?
Yes.
But like obviously not all of them are.
Tom, I screwed this on too tight. Do you think you can help me out with that?
Let me take a look.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I don't know how I got it on so tight.
I got you.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
But like my favorite enemy in that game is an enemy called Daddy. Do you remember this enemy?
Refresh me.
It's a boss fight. There's this character, I forget her name. She's the one that's based off of Sandra Bullock. the first woman you come across in town.
Yeah.
Her character model is based off of Sandra Bullock from The Net.
Right. Great movie, by the way.
And
it's about the internet.
So like she's come to Silent Hill looking for her mom.
Right.
And obviously she was sexually abused by her father.
Right.
And this is a boss fight. And it's this enemy, and you look at it, and it's like this weird square-shaped thing, and you're like, what the fuck is that?
Mm-hmm.
And you really look at it, and what it is it's a human-shaped figure forcing itself on top of another human-shaped figure on a bed.
Yeah.
That's walking around, and you're fighting that thing in a room with like these fleshy pistons going off.
The game is
that
fucked
are
up.
obviously supposed to simulate penetration.
The game is fucked up.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that makes it much more scary than most horror.
Well,
games.
like because I think that a lot of the time with horror games, because I think that most people have like an inherent fear of death, right? So like I feel like a lot of horror games like kind of bank on that. Whereas like I think Silent Hill is more like, well, there are scarier things than dying.
Right.
And like a lot of that shit. That's why Silent Hill, I think, has always been just it's one of the few horror games that I feel is actually interesting.
Yeah.
Because it like it all like there's always a statement being made with all of the shit that you see in those games.
Well, and 2, right? 2 specifically does not mention the order. Like, there's nods to it here and there, but like that is not a part of that game's plot.
Yeah. Well, whereas I feel like Silent Hill 1 was very heavy on that shit.
Yeah, 1 and 3. Yeah. So it's neat that it stands on its own.
Yeah.
The other Silent Hills don't really matter for Silent Hill 2, and I think that's pretty cool. Also, like, just little things, like the soundtrack feels so fucking gross.
Yeah.
In, like, there's times where it's the actual soundtrack and there's no rhythm to it. You can't predict, like, how it's going to go.
Yeah.
And that's very weird. Like, it's unsettling,
Yeah.
There's things like the staircase in the Historical Society, which is just, like, fucking huge. Like, if you walk it instead of run it, you're walking down the stairs for, like, almost 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And they modeled that whole thing. It's not a repeating thing. They made that.
Sure. There's
the labyrinth, and when you're turning that cube, that room is actually turning.
Yeah.
Like, it's fucking nuts.
Yeah, and it's
they've got the mirror has a reflection, right? At the very beginning of the game, the mirror has a reflection, which, like, the Order 1886, which I still think is one of PS4's best looking games. They couldn't do that, you know.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is that, like, with Silent Hill, it's not enough just to be scary, right?
Yeah.
It's not enough just to, like, show you scary shit.
Yeah.
It has to. It's one of those few times where I felt immersed in, like, what, like, the world this game had built. And I feel like I felt drawn into it, but also at the same time, like, you hit the nail on the head when you said it was unsettling.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of, I've not played a horror game before or since that I would describe as unsettling. But, like, a lot of people go for that, I think.
Yeah.
But, like, they're like, it's very ham-fisted, and I feel like they're just trying to shock you.
And I think there's games since then that have done similar things. I just don't think there's games that have done it quite as well. But yeah, I fucking love it. It's great.
Yeah.
And I'll probably play it many more times,
Yeah. So, do you remember your first experience with that game? Because I can say that was, where for me, it was high school, junior year.
Certainly high school at some point. So that game came out, I think, in 2001.
2001,
I believe.
2002.
I didn't play it right away. I know that.
Yeah.
But somewhere around then.
Yeah.
When PS2 was still the current generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember buying that game brand new. I skipped school to do that.
Came out the same day as Eco, I believe.
I think so. A fun fact about Eco, my copy of Eco used to be owned by a Blockbuster.
You know what's funny about that?
Yeah.
The copy of Silent Hill 2 that I bought off of eBay used to be owned by a Blockbuster.
Awesome.
Came in a Blockbuster case.
Yeah. But so, like, I'm thinking about horror games, right? And a lot of the time, I think that a lot of the time I kind of tend to avoid them now, and, like, as I've gotten older, because as I've gotten older, shit scares me easier, and so I can't really deal with it.
What's funny is, like, I know you like them.
Yeah, I do like them, but, like, I also like going to sleep.
Yeah.
And I think about my first experience with Outlast, right?
Yeah.
Which is, like, I was not ready for that fucking game. No one told me that games had gotten that scary.
Well, you remember when that game came out, like, all the major outlets were doing their staff reacts to Outlast. Like, even, like, GameSpot and IGN were doing that shit.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for that. And, like, and also I had never played a horror game where I couldn't fight back.
Yeah.
So that made it so, because, like, games like Silent Hill or Resident Evil, I take comfort in the fact that I can fight back. I like that guy's fucking scary. At least I have this gun and maybe I have a chance. With Outlast, all I can do, I can run away and hide. And
so my first experience with that, like, not fighting back, was a Silent Hill game. It was Silent Hill Shattered Memories, which is kind of a reimagining of 1. But the biggest problem with that game, and the problem that people point to it and say it's a bad game, I think it's a good game, is that the other world transitions in that game, like, everything gets covered in ice, and that's the only time you can be attacked.
Yeah.
So in that game every time you're safe and every time you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I when I think back to my first experience with Outlast, I think like the panic that like washes over me when like I'm like shit, like I'm looking around the room like I gotta find where to hide. I gotta hide somewhere, and like knowing that at any time like you're hiding under the bed. Remember when I hid under the bed?
Yeah.
And the guy, I saw his feet and I was freaking out, and then he just like went down onto the floor and saw me.
Yeah.
That scared the shit out of me. And then like, or hiding in a locker, and like the guy might be in the room like looking around like, don't open this fucking locker.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool effect to have in your video game. But
and Amnesia did it long before.
Yeah.
And I think Amnesia still holds up. I know like Corey doesn't think so, but and Shanee didn't like it, but I liked it.
I think that there's something to be said for that, because like when we were talking about Silent Hill, I think that an implication that I was making was that like other horror games are lesser because they don't do that stuff. No, I think that there's a place for every different kind of horror game, and I think that it just depends on what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
Because I think that different horror games do different things well. Like, I don't think that I would like, just based on what Silent Hill is and like kind of what those stories are trying to tell, I don't think I would like Silent Hill very much if the whole thing was jump scares, because it's not that kind of game, right? But I think that
there's very few jump scares in Silent Hill.
I think that games like Outlast definitely are.
Yeah.
And I think that,
and I don't particularly care for Outlast, but I do like that genre of horror.
Yeah.
Like I enjoyed Alien Isolation.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Amnesia. Outlast just doesn't really do it for me. What did do it for me was PT, but PT, I think Silent Hills, I believe, would have had combat.
I think so.
PT, there's not really enemies that can like harm you, like not really.
I think PT's whole thing is just that it's just overall creepy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm very sad that game is never going to happen. But
I think that Silent Hills would have had combat, but I also think that it would have been emphasized lesser than previous Silent Hill games.
Yeah. Interesting thing about PT and Silent Hills, there's this newer theory going around that Silent Hills was never going to come out, and that PT was Kojima's diss track to Konami. And to me, I was like, that sounds fucking ridiculous. But then, like, when you look into the evidence in that argument's favor, like, it seems very likely that that's the case.
I mean, it could be. I don't know that we'll ever know for sure.
Yeah.
But I also think that Silent Hill is a series that, for me, has it had 3 hits and then a miss, right? Because like
The Room?
Yeah, because like The Room just, I guess The Room, yeah, so
4 is The Room.
Yeah. So I like the concept.
Homecoming.
I like the concept of The Room. I think that's a very cool concept, but the actual execution of it, like I wasn't into it.
A lot of people didn't like it.
But I'm very selective with my horror games, these days, because I have to look and see like what is it that I can handle, because like you said, I like horror games a lot, but like I can only handle so much, I think. So I kind of look for different ones. But my mind has been drifting back lately, because it's interesting that we were having a horror game conversation today, because I was actually thinking of Clock Tower recently.
I never played Clock Tower.
And it's funny because Clock Tower, I played both. I don't know if they ever made a third one, but I played Clock Towers 1 and 2, and they're both like,
well, you didn't play the Super Nintendo one.
I did not,
because that was Japan only.
They're both mechanically the same, but thematically they're so different. It's weird. But like, so Clock Tower 1 focuses on the I can't remember their names. I'm just going to call them the Scissor Twins. I think that's actually what they were called.
I've seen them on the internet.
Yeah. Or No. It was the enemy is called the Scissor Man.
Okay.
And he's got a giant pair of scissors.
Yeah, scissor me timbers.
Yes. I played that game as a 13-year-old boy. And,
horrified.
Well, so I was thinking of revisiting that game because I want to see if I was actually right about it, and that I think it's a point and click adventure game.
Like I said, I've never touched it.
And I'm not sure because it has a lot of those.
I know you're hiding.
Yeah, so there's a lot of hiding. But I remember there were that game by today's standards, I don't think that game would scare me because I just think that it's so clunky and it looks ridiculous, and I don't think it would work. But I think that a modern reimagining of that game would probably freak me out quite a bit.
I think it might scare you more than you think. I mean, not knowing anything about the game, but going back to Silent Hill 2, one of my big concerns was tank controls.
Yeah.
And the game lets you pick. You want tank controls, you want more modern controls. The tank controls didn't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think controls, unless they're just god awful, would really get to you.
Yeah.
And then as far as visually, did you ever play Lone Survivor?
Mm-mm.
Lone Survivor is a little indie game. For the longest time, it was PC only. Eventually came to consoles. It's a 2D sprite-based survival horror game.
Okay. It's
basically 2D Silent Hill, but it looks like a fucking Super Nintendo game. Mm. And that game is fucking scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and maybe I don't know of a way to easily play that.
Yeah.
So, I guess if I could. Well, you know what? There is an easy way because I can just buy a copy of it off the internet and put it on the PlayStation 2, and there you go. But that game was I played a lot of that game, back when it first came out, and I thought conceptually it was just really cool because at that time the only exposure I had to horror really was Resident Evil and Silent Hill.
That's not surprising.
Yeah,
I think that's most of us, right?
Yeah, but did you ever play a game called D?
No, I don't think so.
So I believe it might have come out on PlayStation, but it definitely came out on Sega Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure it was kind of an adventure game in the same vein as Myst, but
I like Myst a lot.
But it was just I'm pretty sure there's Draculas in it.
Yeah.
I never actually played that.
The D's for Dracula.
But I played D2. Which came out? I think the D is for Dracula, actually.
Yeah. Judgment Day.
Sure.
D2.
I tried to think of a Dracula themed Terminator joke, and I got nothing. But so D2 came out for Sega Dreamcast, and it basically it's an open world horror game. And then I'm pretty sure it takes place in Alaska. There's a lot of snow and shit around, so I think it's Alaska.
Yeah.
And you play as this woman named, I want to say her name is Laura something. Basically, you're on a plane. The plane crashes. I think you're a flight attendant or something, and you're basically wandering around this wilderness trying to figure out a way to get to safety and just basically survive.
Mm-hmm.
And so. The game is broken up into two kind of modes. There's an exploration mode where you're running around in the snow, and later on you get a snowmobile and you're zipping around. And then it goes into combat, which goes into a first person view, and you kind of shoot the enemies like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of try to find you try to wander around, try to find the supplies and ammunition and stuff like that. And the game isn't in and of itself scary. I know that it's trying to be, but it's not. But it does It has a lot of interesting presentation around it that I think that if a better team made that game, I think that it definitely has a lot of potential to it.
Yeah.
But it does a lot of, I'm always been a big fan of little touches, where it comes to details and animations and stuff like that.
Oh, for sure.
So for example, think about when you pick up some ammunition in a Resident Evil game, right? You pick up the box of bullets. And then it just goes in your inventory. That's it, right?
Right.
What I liked is whenever Laura would pick up she'd find a box of ammunition, box of bullets or box of shotgun shells or whatever. Pick up the box and then she'd shake it to see if there's anything in it. And I thought that was really neat.
Well, that reminds me of one that I know we both like. It's Condemned.
Hell yeah, Condemned.
I really
Condemned
love
is fucking
that,
cool, man.
I love that you have to take your magazine out and count your ammo.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and Condemned is cool, man. And like
And you know what? You bought it for me on PC not too long ago, and like visually, it still looks pretty good.
Yeah. Oh man, that game is so cool. So like, I like horror games where there aren't any like I like horror games that like don't lean on like a supernatural kind of thing.
Okay.
Or like I like that there's not like any like crazy because Resident Evil is like very sci-fi horror, right? And it's got all those crazy monsters and shit, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I like that Condemned doesn't have any of that. It's just a bunch of like really violent.
Yeah.
It's just like a bunch of really violent people who want to hurt you, and what we've seen that before, right? We've seen that in brawlers like all the time, like every brawler.
But it's not presented that way,
right?
Yeah.
Like you're in a building, a condemned one.
Sure.
And like it's so creepy. It's because like you're walking around these hallways of this derelict building, and like you just hear footsteps, all over the place, and you don't know where the fuck they're coming from. And then before you know it, some dude like jumps out at you, starts swinging at you. It's just so effective.
It's great.
And that game uses sound so well. And it uses like the visuals in that game are just so because it's all dark and grimy all the time, and it's just so like there's just that sense of like impending doom.
Yeah,
I think, and I think that a lot of games, that game is one of those horror games that has a heavy emphasis on combat that is also tense and scary. And I don't think a lot of games do that because I think a lot of horror games, in my experience, they lend a lot either on the environment and using that to scare you, or they go the heavy combat angle and don't really worry about scaring you, but they throw some stuff that would be scary.
Yeah.
And I think that Condemned is an interesting case where it kind of strikes a balance between the two that's kind of perfect. I wish Sega would kind of revisit that, but I feel like they won't.
Yeah, well, people weren't biting,
Yeah, they made 2 of them bitches.
Yeah, I never played the second one.
Second one, okay, so the second one does get into supernatural territory. So
I'm okay with that. I like that stuff. Yeah.
So basically, you're no longer in the FBI because, well, you proved to be kind of a liability because of all your hijinks in the first game.
Okay.
And so at some point in the game, there's these people. You remember how in Skyrim they had the shout?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there's an organization of people in Condemned 2 that have that going on.
Okay.
And then later, you have it going on.
Sounds weird.
It is kind of weird. Something that like somebody does something to your throat that makes it so you can do that. It's weird. But I don't think it's a bad game per se. But I think that the first one was so much better because I don't think the second one is actually that scary. I think it's more action heavy.
Yeah.
But man, Condemned was super effective.
So we can't do a horror episode and not talk about Resident Evil a little bit. Mm-hmm. Resident Evil Remake 1,
so fucking scary.
To me, is such an interesting game. It came out at a time where there were not a lot of remakes. I mean, yes, remakes existed. We had Mario All-Stars before that, right? But like, it wasn't a common thing.
Yeah.
And like, they did such a good job with it. I mean, we've talked about it on the show before that's one console generation jump between the original Resident Evil and its remake.
Yeah.
And look at how different they look.
Yeah.
That Resident Evil remake is still released on modern platforms and holds up next to just about anything on those current platforms, And that's because of pre-rendered backgrounds for the most part, which is a large part of the reason that I love pre-rendered backgrounds. I love pre-rendered backgrounds because they can look so good, even on some old hardware.
Right.
The original Spencer Mansion still looks pretty decent compared to other environments on PS1.
Right.
I also love the fact that it's more realistic, not in that how you interact with it, but in that we've talked about, like, let's say there's a chair.
Mm-hmm.
And then in another room, there's a chair. Well, in most 3D games, that would be the exact same model.
Sure.
And in a game with pre-rendered backgrounds, it almost never is, which is much more true to life.
Yeah.
Fixed camera angles, I think, is something that needs to come back. I think I would have liked Resident Evil 2 Remake more if it at least gave the option for fixed camera angles.
Yeah.
Fixed camera angles means that you can't see what you're walking into a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And that alone is scary.
Yeah.
You know? Don't get me wrong, I love the camera in RE2 Remake.
Well,
but
I think so with those older Resident Evil games, like I think that the thing about those camera angles is that they were so expertly placed that like it would have been really easy to put one of those cameras in the wrong spot and just like fuck the whole thing up.
Yeah.
But they were so expertly placed at every single section of the game, and that just added to the tension. And like especially when you hear like a zombie moaning or him walking towards you,
Yeah.
and you can't see that shit, and like you're like, well, with that camera transition, I might get chomped.
Well, speaking to that, like my favorite thing is like when it's a top-down shot.
Yeah.
Like you're walking down a hallway and you see something go across the top.
Yeah.
That your character can't see, like that type of shit. You know?
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And what I like about both Resident Evil remakes is that they were updated in just the right way to make them scary in the current gen.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you talked about Crimson Heads before.
Those are so fucking scary. It's so scary. It's so scary.
But like, I think my favorite thing, more than anything else, about both of them, they both do this, which was the thing I like the most about Remake 2, because I wasn't expecting it, in that they explain things that the originals kind of left unexplained. You know, Resident Evil 1 Remake explains like why this Spencer Mansion is so fucked up and weird.
Mm-hmm.
And RE2 Remake explains why the police station is so weird, you know? Like, I love that shit.
Yeah, because in the original version of Resident Evil 2, they don't know why the police station looks like that.
And why there's all these fucking puzzles and weird shit, you know? Like,
That's really neat. And I think that, like, I think what I like about it is these games, like, neither of those games comes off as a cash grab or anything like that, because it just seems like they seem like they're crafted by people who actually like really like those games, and that's what I like about it.
Well, you know, so Shinji Mikami, Resident Evil man,
that's what they call them.
My favorite thing, not my favorite, something I really like a lot is when a creator remakes their own creation because technology has advanced.
Yeah, it's like this is like if this technology existed then, this is how this game would have been.
Right. And that's Mikami with Remake, right? Like it's like Wes Craven with The Hills Have Eyes, you know.
Only one of those two movies is good.
Sure, but you know what I mean. Like I like that. That's very interesting to me.
Yeah.
You know, so Mikami's most recent game, at least that I know of, is the first Evil Within.
Yeah.
Which I've played some of, you've played some of. Neither of us have finished, but I mentioned to you the other day that while I am really enjoying my time with the game, it's not scary to me, and it feels more like a stealth game than a survival horror game.
Yeah, so like it definitely does, because like it actually like you actually have like one of those like the classic stealth crouch walk in the game, and and I think
tossing objects for distraction and knifing things in the head from behind.
Lots of knifing things in the head.
Like the first 2 or 3 levels of that game, I didn't fire a single shot.
Sure. Well, like you play it right, you don't have to.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. And I think
but it's cool. But like it's supposed to be a horror game from the guy that didn't create the genre, but definitely popularized it, right? And like the whole time, it's like I'm hunting them. You know, if it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, you're Rambo.
Yeah.
I told you stop following me.
Yeah. I like it. I'm enjoying the gameplay.
Yeah. Well, it comes off to me as kind of like Resident Evil is his main band and Evil Within is his side project. And I think that like because I think that there are different spaces of horror to kind of explore. And I think that each of them is like, I think that they're each two very different kinds of horror. And I think that, but I do think that like Evil Within, while isn't scary to me, it has some shit that like is kind of that is like, I do think is creepy. I just don't think it's like, it doesn't scare me per se.
It's a stealth game wrapped up like a horror game, man. It's a stealth game in horror games clothing, you know?
Yeah. But isn't that like, I feel like,
like if you're scared of the chainsaw man chasing you, if that's scary to you, then yes, I'm sure it's a scary game.
Yeah.
But like what scared me when I was 10 is not what scares me when I'm 36. Sure.
Yeah. Who has the scarier chainsaw man, Resident Evil or Evil Within?
Evil Within.
Okay.
But yeah, like I don't know. I do like it, but I don't like it because it's a horror game.
Sure.
I like it for other reasons.
It's a game you like that happens to be marketed as a horror game.
Yeah.
Which the primary reason why I wanted to play through that game is, one, I want to actually play through that game, and two, I want to play Evil Within 2. I want to see what's the deal with that milk.
Which is interesting because that's not Mikami, right?
Right.
But yeah.
And also, we talked before about Doom 3, and Doom 3 is
the only horror Doom game.
Yeah. And I can tell, like, it's very obvious what they're going for, right? It's very obvious what they're going for in that game. And, like with the way that like the levels are designed, the kind of lighting that they use in the game.
Yep.
And
flashlight mechanic, all that.
And it, it personally to me, it wasn't very effective.
It was creepy to me at the time. Because it looked so good when it came out.
Yeah. A lot of the creepiness for me came from like reading like text journal entries and stuff like that. Like there's an entry in that game that like has always stuck out to me, where the UAC was like they had opened the portal to hell.
Yeah.
And like they sent a probe through and like to like capture video and stuff. And it was talking about like on the video, like it's talking about how like it saw all these like these glowing eyes around it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's creepy. Hell's a creepy place, I'm sure. But that game wasn't effective as a horror game to me. I enjoyed playing it, but I enjoyed playing it more as I kind of played it as an action game.
Yeah. What's interesting is like when Visceral talks about Dead Space, they point to a few different things, right? They talk about Alien and they talk about Event Horizon.
Sure.
They never bring up Doom 3, but I see a lot of Doom 3 in Dead Space, at least in the first Dead Space.
I also see a lot of Event Horizon in Dead Space.
Yeah. But I think it works well.
Yeah.
Like Dead Space 1 to me was a scary game.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that it had that thing. I think that Dead Space and Mass Effect had the kind of the same trajectory, in that as the series like progressed, it became more of an action game.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you take a look at Mass Effect 1 compared to Mass Effect 3, like
right.
And same
Mass
thing.
Effect 1 was an RPG.
Yeah,
right.
And same thing with Dead Space 1 through 3, because like by the time you get to 3, like I'm doing a lot of shooting.
But I think that's a problem with all of these series. The same could be said for Resident Evil. The same could be said for Silent Hill.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I guess like, I mean, at the end of the day, like you still want to make money, right? And if people want to play action games that are horror games, then what are you going to make, right?
I mean, Resident Evil 5 sold crazy.
Yeah.
And
that is an action game.
Yeah.
But like, I cannot overstate how scary Dead Space 1 actually is.
Oh yeah, it's great. So I mean, that's one thing I want to get into is I think a big thing for me with these games is setting. Whether it's Spencer Mansion, whether it's Silent Hill, or the Ishimura, like those are some fantastic places to have a game.
And I've always had a soft spot, and I think it's because of my affinity for Alien, but I've always had a soft spot.
Oh yeah,
for spaceships, like bad shit happening on spaceships.
So what's your favorite horror game setting?
Well, Ishimura, I think, is probably going to be my number one.
Damn. Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. It's good because it feels lived in.
Yeah.
Yeah. The little sectors that you go to, like they make sense, and you could see how a community of people could live there, and it's interesting. I really like the Queen Zenobia, which is the ship from Revelations 1.
Yeah.
I just think like it's not a ghost ship, but like you get that vibe.
Sure.
You know?
I think ghost ship stuff is really cool.
It's like Spencer
too.
Mansion. It's not a haunted mansion, but you get that vibe. You know.
Yeah, I think that stuff is really cool too, and also like, well.
And it moves realistically, right? Yeah. Like the boat doesn't rock like crazy, but it's ever so slight, just like a giant ship is.
Yeah, and that's cool. Like that's more of it. And I think that a runner up to the Ishimura though, like I really like the setting for Until Dawn. Like
Until Dawn. That's a good pull there. Good pull there. I always forget about Until Dawn, and like while it is Scream, it's really good.
Yeah, like shit shit in the woods is scary. Yeah. But like for somebody like shit in like snowy woods is more scary to me.
Good pull. That was a good game. That was a good game.
Yeah. And I liked it. I liked it a lot in that like there's like a lot of nostalgia in that game. Like there's just like these people like Supermassive like obviously really like slasher movies,
like 90s teen horror movies,
and like
right?
and they do it.
It's I Know What You Did Last Summer.
They've made
Scream.
They've
like,
made
that's
it
what it is.
Really. They did a really good job with that. Yeah. The only thing that I didn't like, I love Peter Stormare. I love him so much, but he does not belong in that game. I think that like a lot, like every time it went back, they kind of just pulled me out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Until Dawn had some really good stuff. And as much as I really don't like this game, Dead by Daylight,
I've never actually played it.
I really don't like that game, but I think that almost all of the villains that they made for that game are really cool. I also think the villains that they licensed for that game are really cool too, but that I'm not gonna really count those because, like, I mean, yeah, Michael Myers is rad, but
sure.
But like a lot of the villains that they made for that game are really cool. And I don't think that the environments themselves like are like anything like particularly special, but I think placing those villains in that game are really cool. And I think that I think that Dead by Daylight would have been so much better, honestly, if it weren't a competitive multiplayer game.
Yeah, but I mean that's what was selling, you know.
Yeah, I think that game, and because I think that like what they could have done,
and that I believe I could be wrong about this. I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be the Friday the 13th game until the licensing issue.
Yeah. But like I think that it would have been cool if instead of doing the whole asymmetrical multiplayer thing with it, I think it would have been really cool if they did if they broke it up in the way that like Left 4 Dead is kind of broken up into those little campaigns.
Little chapters, yeah.
And I think that would have been cool. Like give like each of those is like a different feller.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been cool. I think I would like the game a whole lot more if it were that.
Sure.
But
shout out to Europe in Resident Evil 4. Somewhere in Europe.
Yeah.
While I don't think Resident Evil 4 is particularly scary, that first little village is nice and creepy.
Absolutely. You know? Especially with like because Leon gets there and he's like it's funny how skeptical Leon is because like he's like the shit that Leon is seeing and he's like there can't like he's like what is going on? Like I would just assume somebody's made a virus and shit's going down.
That's one problem with RE2 Remake is like I really like some of the voice lines that they give the characters.
Yeah.
I mean just Claire and Leon.
Yeah.
But like Claire specifically, when her lines of dialogue repeat, don't make sense. Like when you see a zombie and you're like, what the hell's wrong with you? You wouldn't say that.
I was like, I know what's up now.
You wouldn't say that 3 hours into the game.
Yeah.
You know?
Because she was like, I remember we were near the end of our playthrough and I shot a zombie and she's still like, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like,
at the beginning when they say that stuff, it's great.
Yeah.
But cut it off at a point, you know?
Yeah. Shit, I forgot what I was saying. But I did want to talk about Darkest Dungeon for a second. Because I consider that game to be a horror game.
I could see why you would.
And I think that is one of those few horror games that I've played where I played horror games where the PC was scared but I've never played a horror game where they suffered like lasting effects from like the shit that they saw. And I also thought that was really, I think that's one of the more compelling aspects of that game.
Sure.
Is the idea of like the acknowledgement that seeing mutated pigmen or like being chased by like undead anybody is like stressful as hell and is fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
And the acknowledgement that like these people who are going into these dungeons like aren't maybe not ready for that.
Yeah.
And I think that was really cool. And on top of that, like while his lines do repeat, I do think that the narrator's quips and comments is always effective.
Yeah.
I think that like the things that he said just like hang over everything that happens in the game, and it's just so like bleak, which is something I like about it. Like even in your successes, like the things he says just like so bleak, like basically like that was really good, but you know in the end we're all dead anyway.
Yeah,
and it's just like very much that kind of vibe, and I like that. You know, and like this whole game's just like dark and gross.
Yeah.
And you know it's really cool, and especially considering the fact that like the animation in that game is just so simple. It's just 2 frames for everybody, like basically like, and I think it's really neat.
I like that. I like your take on that. That's cool.
Yeah, and I'm sure my take isn't unique, but like,
I mean, I've not played Darkest Dungeon. I know what the game looks like. I know what the game is about and all that. But yeah, it's interesting. You know, if I had to pick one that I don't think most people would consider horror, I think it's a good comedic horror game. Abe's Odyssey.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because, like, I mean, you're going to be eaten. You know?
He thought he was doing a good job.
What's not horrifying about
Yeah, he
that?
thought he had a good job.
Soylent Green, you know?
Yeah. Like, well, like it's that, and they reveal that very, very quickly, right?
Oh yeah,
like
right away.
The opening cutscene.
Yeah,
he's just like, they're gonna eat us.
Yeah,
and like,
and you're trying to fucking escape.
Yeah,
being eaten.
Yeah, and like try to get as many of your dudes out with you.
Yeah.
And I think that like, I think that like not only do people not think of Abe's Odyssey as a horror game typically, I just think that typically people don't think of Abe's Odyssey, which is a fucking shame. Because that game is, because that game is, I think that game is so great, you know.
Lorne Lanning, man, Lorne Lanning.
Yeah. It's funny because Oddworld Inhabitants does still exist, but they just,
well, they're putting out this newer one that plays like the older ones.
Yeah.
Same engine is new and tasty.
Yeah.
So that'll be cool. But yeah. Also, Stories Untold.
Yeah.
Like,
oh man, that's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
Like the whole dressing around that game is so like cool, and like the funny thing about Stories Untold is I can't, and as much as it's kind of like in the same feeling that I get when I play Control, is like there's so much weird shit going on.
Yeah, I
can't put my finger on it.
Yeah,
but it's just like it's in the back of my head. That's just so weird.
Yeah, and Stories Untold, like, I consider it a horror game, but I could see why some people might not.
Yeah.
But like, what I like about Stories Untold, it's going back to you're talking about like Silent Hill being unsettling. Like it lingers, you know. Like that game stays with you long after you're done playing it.
Yeah.
And I think that is my favorite kind of horror, whether it be a game or a movie or whatever.
Yeah, and well, I think that primarily because it's unique, you know.
Yeah.
I think that there aren't a lot of developers who do something that is so because everything about Stories Untold that is scary about it is kind of like it's kind of wrapped up in the mechanics and the text.
Yeah.
And you know, and I think that's just really, really neat. And
I like when games can have that aha moment, like when everything, like nothing made sense, and then suddenly everything makes sense.
Yeah,
you know,
and like, you know, there are games though that I've been.
And I mean in the story, not in the puzzles.
Yeah.
You know, in the story, you don't know what the fuck this is about.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you do, and it hits you so fucking hard.
Yeah. Shout out to the horror section of What Remains of Edith Finch.
Oh, for sure. Like it's very campy, but obviously it was supposed to be
very Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really neat.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool, like the comic strip, like sort of feel, like the way it was narrated. I thought that shit was really cool.
And they have the Halloween music.
Yeah.
Very briefly.
Yeah. And so like one of the things that like I've always really found interesting is portrayals of hell in movies and video games, because I just feel like it's always interesting, different people's takes on what that might look like. And you know, I was, and it's not necessarily a game that I played, but it's a game that I wanted to play, and then like I heard a bunch of shit about it that I didn't want to play it anymore. Was Agony. Because I thought, like, I was like, man, that's just so like, because usually when like, because I think about different versions of hell, they usually have a lot of lava and fire going on.
Yeah, Dante's Inferno, Doom.
You know, Dante's Inferno was a little different, because I think that I think that it went with like the way it was presented in the titular Inferno, which was like all those different circles of hell. So like not all of them had fire, but they were all kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
And which it's funny, because when I first played that game, I was like, man, this is so fucking cool.
It is cool.
But I went back to it recently, and I was like, it's still cool, but like it also aged badly.
It did.
So, but like I think the concept of it is cool. But like with Agony, like when I saw that, I was like, man, it's just gross and like and dark. But like what got me about Agony, and was just like, I think about like, you know, portrayals of hell and like Doom and Dante's Inferno. And with Dante's Inferno, like there's like a lot of screams going on. It's like a lot of screaming happening. And with Doom, there's a lot of like, there's a lot of shit going on because your gun's going off all the time.
And flying all over the map.
Where like with Agony and everything that I saw of it, like it was gross and everything, but it was like also like very quiet.
Yeah.
And like that was like creepy in and of itself to me.
I think you should check out a game called Scorn.
Yeah, you were showing me Scorn, which is supposed to be like...
It's not out yet, and I don't know that it's supposed to be hell, but like it's very Geiger looking and like just real dark.
I wanted to play Agony, but then I heard a bunch of stuff like there's a lot of a lot of really bad shit.
And I don't know if Scorn's going to be good, or not, but it looks.
I mean, there's no way to know, but like,
it looks cool. It might already be out. I'm not even sure, but it looks awesome.
But yeah, you know, and I want to like, I really, really want like, I want to play more horror games, you know, but I'm at the point in my life where like, because I think about like where I was when I first started playing horror games, and it was very much like, just make it bloody and that's all I need, right?
Yeah.
Like make it bloody and that's all I care about, right? But now I was like, I'm 35 years old, and I'm just like, I want a little bit more.
That's what makes me so sad about Silent Hills.
Yeah.
Just the names attached to it. So when you beat PT, right, you see the trailer and you see
Norman Reedus.
You see three names. You know, you see Hideo Kojima, you see Guillermo del Toro, and then Norman Reedus, of course. Yeah. Then we learn later that Junji Ito is attached to it, and like,
he had his book right over there.
Yeah, and like if you could make a video game that looked like Del Toro's freaky ass monsters, or Junji Ito's like really fucked up shit, like that'd be so cool.
Yeah, because I remember watching Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
And man, that shit was fucked up.
Even Hellboy. Like, I wasn't a Hellboy fan, but like
he did some really good stuff with Hellboy.
But you know, you're talking about games that take place in hell, and like James going through the woods in Silent Hill 2 is supposed, like, that takes from the Divine Comedy.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be his descent into hell, you know?
Which I think, so Dante's Inferno is what made me read the Divine Comedy.
Yeah.
And which is like, I don't know why I did that.
You're talking about Visceral's Dante's Inferno.
Yeah. You know, also what's funny is that there's a Dante's Inferno movie, not based on the video game, starring, Dermot Mulroney.
I don't know who that is.
He's a actor from like, who was really popular in the 90s. He's had a little bit of a resurgence lately. I watched the Dante's Inferno movie that was supposed to be like, anyway, I read the Divine Comedy, and I don't know why I did that, because when I read it, I was just like, I don't get subtext, and so I was just like, but I wanted to read it just to say I did it anyway. But I do think like now going back to it,
and
like getting like a more, because getting a more like modern translation of it. Like I want someone to do another game based on that. Not that game.
Yeah. No, for sure.
But I would like someone
not an action game.
Yeah, because I think that the thing with Dante's Inferno is that it was an action game that used the Inferno like as kind of a backdrop, but like it didn't do a whole lot with that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that like because like it was, I think that they kind of stopped at they would have, you could talk to Virgil when you entered each circle. And and he would give you some context as to
give you some lip.
Yeah, he'd give you. You could talk to Virgil at the entrance to each circle, and he would tell you more about the stuff. But then like kind of stopped it there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the extent at which Dante engaged with that stuff was just like killing everything.
Well, it's interesting. I think like because I watched the dev diaries for that game.
Yeah.
Leading up to its release, and like the team talked about like the creature design in that like they were really trying to make enemies that made sense for those areas.
Sure.
And I could see where they were doing that.
Yeah.
But it also seemed like it was a teenager's interpretation of those things, you know?
Yeah.
Not to be insulting. I like that game.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that the concept of Dante's Inferno is very interesting. I just think that the execution, I liked everything. I liked everything as far as like I liked the art in that game like a whole lot. But I also liked what stuck out to me with that game was like their representation of Lucifer and like how just like this kind of like ethereal kind of like smoke feller who made out with your wife a lot. And
that first cutscene though, man, so cool. Like, it holds up. That first cutscene holds up. And it's like particularly well acted or anything, but just the animation, man, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, and I would like
that EA money right there, man.
Yeah, and I think that because of Dante's Inferno, I don't think that we're going to see another game explore the 9 circles anytime in the near future. But I would like to because I think that there is an amazing horror game there.
Yeah.
Just no one's made it yet. But I also think that there are things like, again, like we go back to Silent Hill 2. I like the idea of, because I think that with Silent Hill 2, and actually to an extent Dante's Inferno did it too. They did it. The whole thing was like, well, dying sucks. There's stuff that's worse than dying. And I think that's where the money is.
Just visually, and I do like the game quite a bit, but like some of the level design for Hellblade's Senua's Sacrifice is like real good and creepy, man.
Yeah,
really good. When you're walking through that like waist high guck of blood and all that, like,
and I think that they're like, and I'm glad that you brought up that game because,
and the creature design, that fucking crow thing.
Yeah, I think that game is scary in a way that isn't often explored, and very effectively at that. But I don't think that we're gonna see that stuff I don't think we're gonna see anything like that in the near future. But
and I wouldn't consider it to be a horror game.
Yeah, but like there are scary parts about it. I think. And there are parts where like, again, like unsettling, right? And there were parts in that game where like I was legitimately unsettled.
Yeah.
And those were the parts that like really resonated with me. But I think also that there are so many areas that I think people can explore, because I think that a lot of what people go for when they make a horror game is there's someone with something sharp and they're coming after you, and that's kind of where it ends.
Right.
And I think that people, especially with how far video games have come in the since Silent Hill 2 came out, I think that there are so many cool things that people could do with the horror game genre that haven't been explored yet.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that what they did with Alien Isolation was exceptional.
Yeah.
I love the idea of giving you a gun, but also like,
yeah,
it's
okay with the working Joes.
Yeah,
that's what they're called, right?
Yeah. but like it's not gonna work against that xenomorph.
Yeah.
And I think stuff like that is really cool. I think that I think that there are so many ways to do like a really cool horror game that haven't been explored. And I think that, but I do think that if companies listen to me, okay, because what I've said was what everybody's talking about. Not everybody, but whenever they show you these machines, these new machines that they're coming out with in the next year,
right?
They want you to know how great these games look.
Right. Fine.
Games looking good is great, but make interesting games too. And I think that utilizing like the capabilities of new hardware to make more like mechanically interesting games and make more thematically interesting games is what I'm hoping to see. So I'm hoping, because we got Outlast in the first year of the PlayStation 4. So I'm hoping that we get a really cool horror game the first year of the PlayStation 5 or Xbox, whatever it's called.
Oh, I mean, we get a cool horror game every year. Yeah. You know, we will. Yeah. But it's just, I don't think that hardware is going to give us anything drastically new, because that hardware already exists in the PC space, you know?
Yeah. Well.
But
I like being spooked.
Yeah.
And I hope that someone spooks me again soon. But there are games that I haven't played yet that are out there that I'm sure would spook me.
Yeah.
But
shout out to Metroid. Metroid, I believe, is a great horror game, and I don't think a lot of people look at it as a horror game.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's because it's Nintendo or because it's, you know, old sprite work and shit. But like, Super Metroid starts you in a lab with dead bodies all over the floor, you know. Fucking Metroid Fusion basically has Mr. X coming after you, you know? Like,
well, here's the thing, is that I think that a big part of why people don't see them as horror games is because, like, they don't advertise them that way. Like, I think back to the way they advertise Super Metroid, and, like, it's just, like, very fast, like, cuts and, like, of, like, Samus doing, like, action-heavy shit. So I think that,
I never really saw advertisements for that game.
Yeah, I think that a lot of what's going to affect people's perception or how people view your game, like, or what kind of game it is very much how you present it when you're trying to sell it to them.
I think it's looking back at games like that.
Yeah,
it's hard to remember what it was like playing games like that when that's what you had.
Sure. Well,
and you used your imagination to fill in the blanks.
Even then, like I remember renting Super Metroid, and like I didn't get that vibe.
Yeah.
But I was also 10. And I didn't have the critical thinking skills that I have now, right?
Sure.
So, you know, I think that, like, if I look back on it, I could see that stuff.
Yeah.
But, I think that, a lot of those games were just, I think that a lot of those games were played. I can't speak for what the age group of those games being played was back then, because I just don't know. But I think about the games that did come out then, and I had always seen Metroid as an action game, again, because that's how it had been presented to me.
And it is an action game.
Yeah.
But can't it be both?
Oh, absolutely. Condemned was both.
Exactly.
So, oh man, I was thinking about Metroid Prime.
Yeah.
And how that was first person.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about Condemned, how that was first person.
Okay.
If they made a Metroid Prime that was like Condemned, not like, obviously not like, no, like I'm saying, like, because like, I think that like Metroid Prime, I think that a lot of it like was really brightly lit. There's a lot of vivid colors going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think that it lent itself well to that kind of tone.
Yeah. Prime, I don't think was particularly scary.
Yeah. But if they present like, think about it this way. Like, if we had a Metroid Prime that was in an environment that was similar to the Ishimura, and I think that could be really cool. I don't know how scary it would be, but I think it would be a really good attempt at that stuff. But that's not gonna happen. Well, I don't know. I don't know what the next Metroid game is gonna be. But
it's Prime 3 is the next, or Prime 4 is the next one.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So it's probably not gonna be that, but it's probably not gonna be what I was talking about. Or maybe it is. I don't know. I haven't seen anything for it because it's not. I don't work at Nintendo, but but I think that that's another thing too, is that first person horror is something that I think has saturated the market as far as horror games are concerned, but I don't think very many people have done it very well.
Yeah.
And because I think like a lot of it's like just super gimmicky, or like it's written poorly or something like that. and I guess I'm just like, when it comes to those games, I'm just chasing the feeling that I had from 2005.
Yeah.
Playing Condemned, but
a shout out to Castlevania 3 on the NES. They used to give me the heebies a little bit.
Yeah. Fuck that. Castlevania 1 gave me the fucking heebies. Because that was a time when I was scared of Draculas.
Yeah, sure.
And I didn't know what the fuck those zombie things were in the first level. Yeah. They were scary as heck. And I think that Castlevania 1 is a legitimately creepy game.
Yeah.
And and also maybe too hard for a 5-year-old to beat. So maybe tone that back a little bit for me.
I think too hard for today's 5-year-olds.
Sure. I don't know. 5-year-old me back then was having a hard time. Fuck, it made me forget what, because there's another one that I really, really wanted to bring up to you, and I can't remember. I lost it. But
Eternal Darkness. Fatal Frame.
Shit. Fatal Frame. I didn't play any other Fatal Frame. I played Fatal Frame 2. That's it.
Okay.
And
I've got Fatal Frame 2 coming in the mail. Man, I've never played it, though.
The game is...
I've never played it.
Oh, my God. That game is so fucking scary.
It looks good. Crimson Butterfly, I think?
Yeah.
The twins.
Oh, man. You pull that camera up in the... Okay, so I'm going to tell you... So
I know how the game plays.
I'm going to tell you what the moment that made us scream was.
Okay.
This is my friend Jimmy and I, we used to play video games late into the night, and we had like video game sleepovers or whatever, right? So there is in the lore of Fatal Frame 2, there's some lady who I guess hung herself.
Right. Some sacrifice or something.
They called her Broken Neck Lady.
You've told me about this.
And so like she's oh my God. Okay, so she's a lady who, like, as a ghost, she walks around with her head hanging to the side because her neck's broken.
Yeah.
And like, so our friend Jamie and I were playing this game at like really late at night, room dark, because you got to set the mood when you play these games.
Right.
And he pulls up the camera obscura.
Right.
And like,
this was the current console gen at the time. So
yeah, this is PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
And he pulls up the camera obscura, and Broken Neck Lady is standing right there. We both scream. Jimmy throws the controller at the TV, and we turn the game off. And it was just it. But shit like that is because the entire time, like the environment of that game is designed to make it so that shit can happen.
Yeah.
And to give you that feeling that these ghosts are fucking everywhere. And
that game got a remake, but we never got it.
Yeah. But that game, it was so effective.
Yeah.
And what it did. And I want more games like that, because I feel like that game took some risks. Like, as far,
for sure.
And I want
setting it in Japan was a risk at the time.
Yeah.
Look at what Silent Hill Resident Evil did. They didn't set it in fucking Japan.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think that game took some risks that, that paid off.
Yeah.
And so I think what I want is, I think that now that I'm, as I get older, I want, like I said, I want games to be more interesting. And I think that in the horror space, like, the more interesting you can make that game, like, the better for me. Like, the more scary it can be for me.
Yeah. Well, I remember the first time you and I played PT together, the night it came out. And man, I never heard you scream like that.
Yeah. But I had no concept of how loud I was screaming because I had the headphones on.
Sure. Oh man, that's so good.
But again, like, everything about what's scary about PT is just the environment. Everything that's scary about that is the environment, because like nothing actually happened to me except for that lady showed up.
Sink fetus.
Yeah, that was gross.
Eyeballs.
Yeah, 2 scoops at least.
Yeah, several scoops. Yeah.
But like everything that was scary about, because it was like, it's a dark, creepy house.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, that was my favorite thing about what I played of Resident Evil 7, is I think that house is fucking creepy. It's creepy and it's just gross, and like wandering around a house, like, that's another thing too, is like, and that's an old fucking horror trope, right? Like, wandering around this house where you're unfamiliar with.
Yeah, so I mean, it reminds it makes me think of, Probably a lot of people think of Texas Chainsaw.
Absolutely, absolutely, because like that's the whole thing, right? Like you're in fucking Leatherface's house and you're trying to get out of that house, and he knows the house. He's gonna jump out at you and chainsaw you to death, and
ringing.
Yeah, a lot of that. There's a lot of that in all of those movies.
Yeah.
Also, don't watch the one with Matthew McConaughey in it because it's real bad.
Sure. As I imagine it would be.
I think it's called Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2000 or like New something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so that like I honestly think that Resident Evil 7 could have also been a really cool Leatherface game, but I don't know that we're ever gonna get that one. But there are so many cool ways to scare people with video games, and I just think that you gotta I think that you really have to go past the whole thing of I'm running away from the guy with the sharp object.
Yeah.
That can be scary, but you have to really try for that. And I think that doing it narratively, doing it with environmental storytelling, that's where it is for me. So
also playing Resident Evil 2 really makes me wish more horror games would include LucasArts adventure game puzzles in them. Because I don't know why that's been so just attached to the survival horror genre, but whether it's Silent Hill or Resident Evil or fucking Fatal Frame, these are puzzles straight from Grim Fandango.
Yeah,
and I love that shit.
Yeah,
I love that shit.
I think that
I know a lot of people don't, but I personally love that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like a lot of people did like it. Those games sold gangbusters. So.
Yeah. But whenever I hear people complain about those games, it's like, oh, this puzzle was too hard and blah blah blah, and why does this juice interact with this trash? And well.
Well, I remember, and I think I'm not sure, but I think pretty much all the Silent Hill games did this, where you have your action difficulty and then you have your puzzle difficulty.
Yeah.
And for the babies, you can set the puzzle difficulty down, so that's real easy for you.
It's a good thing, but what an extra thing to ask of a developer,
Yeah, you can't figure out these puzzles that we made for you.
Yeah.
Because crafting puzzles is hard enough.
Yeah, I'm sure those took some time to think up.
Yeah, and then now I gotta think of a whole nother puzzle that's easier for the babies.
Yeah.
I'm using babies as
about
pejorative.
Our most recent Resident Evil 2 playthrough when we got stuck with the blocks.
Yeah, but
with Sherry.
That's just me being a dum-dum, and I can't blame Capcom for that.
But we had 3 adults that were struggling with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like if it were just me by myself, I probably would have Googled it at some point.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's the thing. I think depending on the game, that shit doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
Like you and I Googled a lot of stuff for Stories Untold.
Yeah,
we were straight up stuck on a lot of that stuff because we never played a game that worked that way.
Well, the first story at Stories Untold is a text-based adventure.
Well, that I zoomed through.
Yeah,
but by episode 2,
me too.
We were pretty scred for a while.
Because we were just how does this work with that?
Right.
Because I think a lot of these
it's all terminals and it's just
again, we had never done anything like that, so we're just our brains weren't feeling we couldn't. They didn't how does that work? Our brains didn't work that way. So.
So I had no problem Googling that stuff. Did not take away from my enjoyment of that game.
Sure,
but to me, that's such a big part of a game like Resident Evil that I wouldn't want to Google that stuff.
Yeah. I have a question about survival horror. Specifically, what's the survival part?
I think the survival part used to be very limited resources.
That makes sense now.
And now I don't know. Now I don't know what it is.
Yeah. I really enjoy
that's one thing Evil Within does well.
Yeah.
The first thing I expanded with my brain juice was handgun ammo.
Yeah,
how much ammo I can hold.
Yeah.
And I could still hardly hold any of it.
Yeah, they trick you.
I was finding plenty of it.
Sure.
But I couldn't take it with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That game is real cool.
But also it doesn't matter when you don't need that. I'm sure you do later in the game.
Sure.
With where I was at.
Well, not only does it because it would have been one thing if they was if they had spend your juice to carry more ammo of all kinds.
Yeah, I think it is.
No, it's carry more ammo because it has more ammo of each specific kind.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Also, I think that you could spend juice on being able to punch harder, but like
he already punches pretty hard.
Mr. Castellanos is already a really strong man, so
like when you first get the pistol, it's when it does the fucking Spencer Zombie look back.
Yeah.
Homage to Resident Evil.
Yeah.
You don't have to kill that thing.
No.
Like they should have made the first one something you have to kill.
Sure.
You know?
I don't know. I think that game is real cool, and I'm really excited to play it.
Yeah.
Not scary though. It's one of the reasons it's not scary to me is just because like the whole thing is just so fucking cheesy.
Maybe it will be though. Maybe.
Maybe.
See, I love that though. I love like that's something. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said cheesy.
It's very cheesy
because like I like Resident Evil 2's voice acting. It's fantastic, right?
Side note, I heard that weren't supposed to be the actors. I heard there was like a strike going on. They got
that was
actors.
During the SAG strike. Yeah. But like I still think the voice acting was fine. It was really good. But like when I think about there's a couple of games that come to mind. Alan Wake, Deadly Premonition, Silent Hill. Yeah. When I think about those voice actors, like that is the perfect point for me for a horror game. Resident Evil 1 and 2 and 3, like those old Resident Evils with like that's just bad.
Barry. Where's Barry?
Right, that's just bad. But like and like Silent Hill 2's voice acting is bad. Deadly Premonition's voice acting is bad. But like it's bad in this weird way that makes it good.
Yeah.
So like if you buy the Silent Hill HD collection, you can play with new voice actors.
What?
And like good new voice actors, like Troy Baker voices James Sunderland, right?
Troy Baker's in everything though.
But like it's not great. You want the weird shit.
Yeah.
You want the fucking David Lynch level of acting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I feel like when you go to those games, like that's where you go into them, right?
Yeah,
you want to relive all the shit from like back then. I don't know. Like
remake 1, I could do with some new voice actors. I could. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
But
so like as far as like stuff like that, like I have yet to play, like my interest in like so. As it turns out, I had imaginings for what I thought Death Stranding was.
Yeah.
And I think that conceptually, like a lot of that shit is like super creepy.
Yeah.
And I'm like actually like one of the reasons I'm looking forward to playing it is because I want to see if it is as creepy as I believe it will be. Mm-hmm. I feel like conceptually there's a lot of creepy shit going on in that game. But like I wonder how effective it actually is. Because I'm kind of on the fence about it.
I mean, I'm super excited to play it. I don't think it's a horror game by any means.
Could have been,
but I am very excited for it. Yeah. Even with the mixed reviews, like I don't care.
I usually don't actually. I've gotten to the point where like I don't really care about reviews that much anymore.
I do sometimes. Like Jedi Fallen Order, I probably would not be interested in, and now I am because everyone's praising it. Yeah. You know. But and I like Star Wars, it just didn't look interesting to me.
Well, it's because I just Tom, what do you imagine a Star Wars horror game would be like?
Oh, that'd be so fucking good.
Yeah.
I don't know what you would do, but you could make that awesome.
Yeah. Would you if you were?
I feel like that was a thing. No, that was the books. They made horror Star Wars books.
If you were to make a Star Wars horror game. Would the player get a lightsaber or not?
Yeah, I feel like you have to.
Okay.
Well, you don't have to. I mean, Dash Rendar didn't have one, and that was a fun game.
Yeah.
But
you get a jetpack.
Yeah.
It's like a lightsaber, kind of.
Sure. You could do like a Terminator thing, like IG-88's after you.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I like that. That's a scary motherfucker. You seen that dude's head?
Anyway, we're going long, so.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, Tom, video games can be scary sometimes. Usually these days they are not, but I'm looking forward to the next scary video game.
Resident Evil 2?
Yeah.
Best scary game of the year?
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Absolutely. Yeah. As a matter of fact, when we played it, there's a section with all the liquors, and I was scared to proceed.
Oh yeah, the kennel.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know because you did Leon.
Yeah. Like don't do that to me again.
Yeah.
But yeah, video games are scary. We'll play more of them. We should be doing a Evil Within playthrough in the very, very near future. So look out for that.
For sure.
But other than that, we will see you next time. I'm Ryan Robinson. This is Tom Shelby.
Bye, guys.
See you later.